There
All
we go.
right, it flashes a bit and then it'll say start recording in just a second. There we go. All right. So, guys, welcome. This is your first time, and I'm glad to meet you. This is Joni. Is that your name? Huh?
Jo-
Huh?
it's Joanne.
Joanne. Okay. All right. And your name is what?
Vaughn.
Vaughn. Okay, from Vancouver. Good. All right. And you started off with a question. Um, and so the answer comes from that there are three kinds of knowledges that one needs. And the first knowledge is the knowledge that nobody's going to do it for you. If you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it on your own. So, and here's part of the issue with that. There's, in fact, other suttas where it is stated in the sense of the impossible that it's not possible for one human being to read the mind of another. That was one of the things that the Buddha was accused of, and yet he denies that he could actually encompass the mind of another. And Achan Po was also, um, uh, let us say, gave me the same lessons over and over and over again. And one of them was is that you cannot read the mind of another person. You don't know what they're thinking. Therefore, you have to look. You have to investigate. That they'll give you enough information with their body language, but you cannot read anybody's mind. All right.
Yeah.
So an example of that would be if you go to music lessons, you
Yep.
have a piano teacher and you have piano lessons, and then you go to the next piano lesson and you have not practiced at all during the week. The teacher's going to know that, not because of what you say. In fact, every kid's going to lie and say, "Yes, I did practice," but the reality is on the keyboard, no, not this week. You didn't practice. All right. But we can't do that in the meditation hall. You can't look at the seeing the way that somebody's sitting and assume that you know what's going on within their own mind. Can't do that. Well, from that position, that goes back then to the point that nobody's going to be able to help you change your mind. That you set the mind up in a set of circumstances when you were kids, everybody does. And then we keep those sort of what I call confirmation biases. In fact, we pick up a lot of data ignorantly. When we're little kids, we don't know nothing. We are given a set of rules. We watch mommy lie, and so we learn to lie. We watch mommy go to church, and so we got to go to church. And we watch people do stuff, and monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
And so that's how we learn things. Ignorantly or not, we learn it, and then we keep it. And one of the things that we learned when we were really young is that we need help. We can't dress ourselves. We can't feed ourselves. And so we get into that state of ideas of that we need help. And so one of the first things that a student with meditation has to come to understand is that he's going to have to do it all by himself or herself. That in fact, that's one of the things about psychology and psychotherapy is that since we're paying a fee of several $100s an hour, okay, Mr. Psychotherapist, do your job, make me happy. We've got a business arrangement here. I paid you good money. You make me good.
In 2 hours.
Right. Or maybe again next week. Exactly so. Um, and so this is a major point where we have to get to the point that we're going to have to do it ourselves. Okay. The second doubt is a major one in the sense of am I up to the practice? Because every time the hindrances come back up and we see those hindrances, we get the idea, oh, this is hard. Oh, I can't meditate. Oh, I don't have good instructions. Goenka had a phrase. He said that when the mind wanders away from the breath, never mind, start again. Now, that's a very, very wholesome, noble statement. Never mind where the mind wandered off to. Okay, don't worry about that. You've got the mojo, you've got the idea. All I have to do is drop that and come back.
Mm.
Okay. And then, in fact, when this idea is fully mature, then the student knows beyond the shadow of a doubt that no matter how obstructed the mind becomes with hindrances, no matter what the situation, no matter what's happening, we can clean it out right now. Throw that stuff out and come back to the moment, come back to the reality, come back to the way things are, and see the truth of the matter. See reality as it is. Okay, that's the second knowledge, or that's actually the second doubt, but it's absolutely the first real knowledge. That in fact the Buddha talks about this as the first knowledge is without a doubt, I know that I can throw those hindrances out of the mind and come back and see things the way that they are. That doesn't mean that this guy is completely free from hindrances, but we do know that we can throw them out. We keep practicing, we keep seeing that, we get some confidence going.
Mm. Okay.
Okay. And so that's the first doubt that actually is the real knowledge. The first knowledge is that I can do this, which is built into that first doubt about I want help because I can't do it.
Yeah.
Now that the second one is yes, I can do this.
Mm.
And then the third knowledge is the knowledge of the path. What is the path and what is not the path? The path to liberation is known. Okay, this is the knowledge that you have to have because that's what we were starting to talk about in the first place. Is the knowledge of what to do. What's the rest of your life going to be like? Well, you've got it. You know that it's going to be the Eightfold Noble Path. That's what we're going to do here. We're going to keep practicing that. This, in fact, the entire teaching of the Buddha. He stated it in, I think there's four different suttas that we found where he says specifically that he only teaches one thing, and that is dukkha, dukkha nirodha. That's the only thing that he teaches. And yet, look how many Buddhist books are full with all kinds of stuff, and they only touch the topic of the Four Noble Truths. It's like one subchapter
Yeah.
of,
The
of a
paragraph.
book. And in fact, this is the only thing that the Buddha teaches. So everything that we're going to learn here is going to be in reference to the Four Noble Truths of dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. Can you see the dukkha? Can you see how it's created? You see, you're the one who was created, but the world, in fact, is fine. If there were no human beings on this planet Earth would be a real paradise.
True.
All the cities would fall apart, crumble. The highways would go. The automobiles would fall into a heap of rust powder and then blow off into the wind. Everything would be
Oh,
peaceful. It's the humans and our hindrances. It's the humans and our misunderstandings of things that cause planet Earth to no longer be a paradise. But in fact, it still is. The only reason that it's not a paradise is because some human thinks that it's not. But in fact, this is actually the Adam and Eve story. You know the story of Adam and Eve in Genesis?
definitely.
All right. Well, um, to be honest with you, it's a real story with a real morality to it. It's a moral tale, just like an Aesop's fable. However, Christians misunderstand the story completely. They get off into the magic. They talk about talking snakes. I mean, really,
Right.
talking snakes. The next item on the list is the woman did it. It's her fault.
Totally.
Silly folks.
Is it?
Adam took a bite of that apple just like Eve did. She didn't have to talk him into it, neither did the talking snake. Now, what we're talking about here is that it's not an apple. That's another piece of magic. How could an apple do anything, right? In fact, we have apples. How many bushels of apples can a guy get and not get meaner, tougher, and spend more years in prison? I don't think that apples and attitude have a lot to do with each other, you know. And so that's another item of, is this real? So there is a statement, though, that they ate of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil. Now, eating of the fruit, that means that we have to put up with the results of. We use the word fruit, not in the sense of something that falls from a tree, but the fruit of the loom, the fruit of your labors, the
Okay.
fruit of the loin. We use that word in all kinds of ways. And so what that means is the results. We've got to put up with the results of our knowledges of good and evil. So if we go around saying, well, that's a good tree, but that's an evil tree. That tree's got green leaves, but wait a minute, it's got a few yellow leaves. I don't like yellow leaves. I'm going to pull that tree out of the ground because I don't like trees that have yellow leaves on them. But then I look at, oh no, there's other trees. That one's got some downright brown stuff on it. I'm going to have to pull that thing up, okay? And
Hmm.
so I'll go around destroying my paradise because I'm judging what I like and I don't like as good and evil. But that's the primary mistake that we make is that what is considered good and evil, the criteria that we use for that is whether I like it or not. If I like it, it's good, and if I don't like it, it's got to be bad. Right? Don't we do that?
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
if I like it, I need it, and if I don't like it, I got to get rid of it. But if I really like it, then it must be good. And if I really hate it, then it must be bad.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we don't really have much of a way of deciding with discernment what is good and what is bad because we keep going with our feelings instead. And what we need to do is to start watching the thoughts and the feelings to see how they're connected, et cetera, like this, to find out that we actually are creating the hell that our paradise actually is by our judgments, our bad feelings, our negative thoughts. So, um, this is where the Eightfold Noble Path comes in. The first thing that comes in is right view. Now, in fact, I say it, you guys have enough right view that you gave me a call. So that was the beginning. You have to have some right view to get started. But then, in a particular instance, the first thing that happens is to remember to have right view. This is what is referred to as sati, and it's called mindfulness in Western language. We use the word mindfulness. And that word, by the way, doesn't have much meaning. In fact, I never even heard of the word mindfulness until I was into Buddhism.
Right.
There's a lot of English language words that seem like that they were made up wholesale, put into the English language to describe things about Buddhism that they really didn't have a translation for.
Right.
Okay, so sati does not mean mindfulness. It means to wake up and to be in the present moment. Okay, when you stub your toe, you're walking through the hall, down the hall, you're thinking about something or another, you're carrying books maybe, and you stub your toe. If you stub your toe, immediately you wake up. You become aware of your surroundings. You know where you are. But a lot of us spend most of our time daydreaming. We can drive a car down the street, as dangerous as it is, and think about something on the other side of town or something that happened last year and not watching, not being now. Okay, so this is what sati actually means, come out of the mental sense and come into the physical sense of the eyes, the ears, the way we feel, what's going on, etc., like that. Wake up. And then the next thing we do is to do a real investigation, ditching or looking. Now, in the English language translation, they talk about right view, and there are kinds of views in the sense of the world view, point of view, etc., like that, which is much more likely concepts. So we're not using the word view here as a a noun, using it as a verb to actually look,
Okay.
actually investigate. So investigating is not the same thing as an investigation. An investigation is the result of investigating, right? And so this is what we're actually doing is we're investigating without coming to a conclusion. Because if you come to a conclusion, then you're more than likely stop investigating, and then things change, and the furniture gets rearranged, and you stub your toe again because you're not watching where you're going again because you thought that you knew where the furniture was. Okay, so this is the whole quality then of right view is that we keep looking and keep noticing, keep coming back to the present moment here now, and look at what's going on. And we look at what's going on in four regards. The four regards, by the way, is the Satipatthana, the four foundations of mindfulness, or the four foundations of Sati. Satipatthana is to wake up and investigate. You want to investigate the body, you want to investigate the feelings, you want to investigate the mind and the mind states and the situations and that sort of thing. And then you're going to investigate the contents of the mind. Okay? This is what the practice of Anapanasati is these four foundations of mindfulness. That you to look, to remember to look. And when we find hindrances, we're going to change. So this is a change now. This is what we mean by right effort. Right effort is actually part of the Eightfold Noble Path, and yet people don't understand it, and so they wind up putting either too little or too much effort in. You could say that the Vajrayana puts in too little effort, and the Mahasi puts in way too much effort. Just the right amount of effort. And so here's how we can look at just the right amount of effort is imagine that you're standing on in the highway. You're out on the road. And you look up and down and there's no traffic, and then you look and you see here comes a great big truck. In fact, he may even be having his horn blowing. He's telling you, I see you, do you see me? Okay. There are three possibilities. One possibility is just to stand there and let the truck run over us. That's cautiously aware, okay, here the truck comes and slam, and I'm flat on the highway. Okay. That's okay too. And then the other one is to pull a Popeye. You know Popeye the Sailor Man with the spinach can?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, what is Popeye going to do when he sees that truck coming? He's going to go, da-da-da, and he's going to hold himself out, and that truck's going to run right into him, right? So, one of them, in fact, both of them have almost advanced knowledge, just a little bit of knowledge, 1, 2, or 3 seconds. They can see something coming, and then they get hit. So that means they've got two kinds of dukkha. One, they saw the dukkha coming. That's dukkha enough by seeing here it comes. And then number two, it actually arrives and gets you. All right. But there's another way of doing it, and that is that when the dukkha or the big truck is coming down the road, all we have to do is step out of the way of the truck.
That seems like the wise choice.
Pardon?
That seems like the wise choice.
Yes. Why don't they teach that in their meditation classes? Why don't they teach to take the right effort to move out of the way, to change your thoughts, to change your unwholesome thoughts to wholesome thoughts? This is what it's really all about. The right effort to make a change. Go ahead.
When you say change the unwholesome thoughts to wholesome thoughts, does that mean come to the four foundations of mindfulness? Investigate?
No, no.
Okay.
Well, yes, too. All right. That in fact, here's a way of thinking about it. In fact, the question that you ask it very early, but almost every student will ask this question: what's the difference between a wholesome and an unwholesome thought? So, Here's the way of looking at it. If it is in the past, it's more than likely going to be unwholesome. Not always. There are times when you can reminisce and recollect and tell stories and all kinds of things. And in fact, you'd be pretty badly off if you forgot everything. You'd be like a tender baby again.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that is useful and valuable. But generally, if we're sitting in the meditation hall and we wake up to recognize that we're thinking about something in the past, more than likely that's unwholesome.
Mm.
Okay. If we are planning for the future, now there are some plans that we actually do need to make. Occasionally we have to go to the bank. Occasionally we have to go do visas or things like that. And so there are some plans that we have to make. But when we start spending a lot of time doing a lot of planning, that's a hindrance that prevents us from being in the here now, where paradise lies. That in fact, hell is in the past, and dangerous unknown territories are in the future. But the paradise is right here, right now. So if we're thinking about the past, thinking about the future, those are dangerous areas. But if you're right here in the present moment, looking at what's going on now, then that's more than likely going to be wholesome. Especially if you're looking at the four foundations, like if you're looking at the body, what's your breathing like? What posture do you have? How are you sitting? You probably heard the phrase rising, falling, touching, sitting.
Mm-hmm.
This is all body, okay? The rising and the falling of the breathing, the touching is the touch of the air, the touch of the cloth, the touch of the skin. Any crawling, creepy crawling animals that's crawling across the surface of your skin, you should know it before they bite. And then the just sitting is the proprioceptic. What is your posture?
Mm-hmm.
How are you sitting? What's going on around you? You can also do that with the walking. So getting in touch with what the body is doing. But in order to make changes to the body, for instance, we can sit up straight. We can, if the legs have leg pain, we can move them so that we can adjust them so that we can get the body into a pleasant, comfortable state,
Mm.
and that we can change our breathing. And so this, remember, is a right effort change model. So one of the first things that we're going to do is to remember to take a long, deep breath. Sati, anapana sati. We're going to remember to take a long, deep breath. And then we're going to remember to take a long, deep out breath. And so this is how we begin to do it. Now, the important point is that whenever we're sitting or practicing this, we want the body to be in a safe place. In fact, we don't want the body out on that highway. It's got trucks, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we don't want to meditate on the railroad tracks. We want to be in private, in seclusion, in an empty room, an empty hut, a pile of straw, sitting under a tree, going off into the woods or into the wilderness where there's nobody around. This is, in fact, this statement that I just made is in several sutras. I've rearranged it. Normally it goes in to go to the forest, to the foot of a tree, an empty hut, to a pile of straw. Okay. Buddha did not mention meditation halls at all. But in fact, for many people, the meditation hall itself is a dangerous place. Why? Because I'm in there. Oh, they're looking at me. Oh, I have to do it this way and that way. Oh, I have to get along, etc., like that. And so the meditation hall can be a dangerous place.
Right.
And so make sure that when you are practicing, that you're practicing with the body feeling safe, secure, and comfortable. And I've got a reason for mentioning these three things: safe, secure, and comfortable. Because if your body is not safe, secure, and comfortable, how can you possibly talk yourself into feeling safe, secure, and comfortable?
Right.
It's not real. So we
Right.
have to start with the real. We have to actually get the body in a safe, secure, comfortable place. And then we start with the sati of talking to ourselves about what's going on right now. That in fact, you can't control the breath unless you're controlling the mind. So, whatever you were thinking about before, when you actually do come back to the breath and take a long, deep in breath, now that's what you're thinking about too. which is wholesome. You're in the here now. That in fact you can actually experience that breath with the understanding that this is breath of paradise, that this is good. I mean, enjoy your breathing.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't enjoy this next breath, then my recommendation is wait 5 minutes, hold your breath, and then the next breath, you'll enjoy it.
Oh yeah. Yep. I've held my
All
breath.
right. Okay, so
Can I
begin to start enjoying the breathing, that it's keeping you alive. And this is life itself. I mean, what's the point of being here now if you're already dead? I mean, at a funeral, there's a whole lot of here now for a whole lot of live people, but inside that coffin, the dead guy, he don't know nothing. He's not here now. He's gone. Right?
They're
All
gone.
right. So let's be alive. Only being alive can we be in the here now, to take in the input that's happening right now, rather than relying upon the past, the old data, because the old data might be problematic. We're thinking about, for instance, the fight that we had with Aunt Susie yesterday, rather than thinking about how nice it is right now that I don't have to listen to her.
That Aunt Susie. She's always on my case. It's unwholesome.
Right. Thoughts about concepts, ideas are unwholesome generally, but not always. An example of that is thinking about the Dhamma is wholesome. Why? Because the Dhamma is actually wholesome. So thinking about the hindrances and thinking about coming out of the hindrances, thinking about seeing through your own ignorance so that you can have wisdom and insight into the point of your feelings, into the point of contact. So when things contact you, you have some control over the way that you feel.
Can concepts like impermanence or dukkha or anatta be unwholesome as well? Is it like
No, because those are real things and they're happening generally right here, right now.
right?
What about the concept of awakening itself, or what awakening should feel like?
If you want it and you don't have it, it's a hindrance. And people do that a lot. In fact, they go to meditation and they get bored, they have trouble, and after a few days, and all of a sudden they'll have a really good moment, a really, really good feel, maybe some insight into the nature of reality, or it might be just a pleasant daydream. And so they come out of that wanting it again. And so they may take that pleasant daydream that they've had and turn it into a past life experience.
Mm.
Or they may say, oh, well, this is what happened. And they go and tell the teacher, and the teacher, who doesn't really understand what he's talking about, that he says, oh, that experience means that you are now a this or a that. Okay. It's almost like saying that once you fall off a horse, now you're a pony soldier.
Yeah.
And that doesn't, okay, but that doesn't mean anything. That in fact, an individual experience really doesn't mean anything, because it was just a here now, and you've got lots of here nows. Here they come one after another. But if you think that it was a special experience, and then you want to have that experience again, but you don't have it, that's being back into the hindrances of wanting something you don't have.
Yeah.
And so in your case, you've never had that awakening at all. So now to you, it's not even an experience, it's just a mental concept to chase after.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you saw it fleeing down the street and now you're looking and you want it. Something like maybe a Lamborghini or a Maserati. You saw it go down the street and now you want one, and you haven't even been in the thing yet. So this is actually quite common in Western Buddhism, because it's taught to us. We are raised to want things, to try to fix things, that thing is broken. Okay, that Adam and Eve screwed up paradise. It's your job to fix it.
Mm.
And in fact, It's not your job to fix all of everything. You can't fix the society. And yet, look how much people get involved with politics, thinking that if I could fix politics, then I will feel better. The answer is you can't fix politics, but you can feel better if you stop trying to fix things and change your attitude instead. Okay? And the attitude is that I can clean out my own mind. And then I take the effort to do that. And so that's one's right effort. So in review, we wake up, we look at what's going on, and then we make a change. Now, any thought that you're having could be increased, could be improved. Any thought that you've got could be improved. Then, in fact, if the thought itself could not be improved, then it must be a super duper good thought. And in that case, we can congratulate ourselves for having such a super duper good thought, and then therefore we can improve it. All right, so any thought can be improved. If you're having a thought about the argument that you had with Aunt Susie, you can do something like say, well, goodbye, Susie, I don't need to see you right now. I've got better things to do. And we can kiss her goodbye and come back to the reality of the present moment and start looking at the body, looking at the way we feel. Then, in fact, kissing her goodbye makes us feel better already anyway. To start seeing her as a dear one rather than as someone that you got to fight with. And so we begin to change our attitudes about things in general. And part of the attitude is, I can handle this. I can fix this. I can take care of this. I can throw this stuff out of my mind and come back to the reality of the moment and see things the way that they really are. Now, if we keep practicing these three things over and over and over and over again, what is that? Right. Sati, to wake up, to be here now. Number 2, to look at what's going on. And number 3, to make a change. If we keep doing this over and over again, we begin to talk ourselves into feeling good. In other words, if you keep having the body feeling safe, secure, and comfortable, and you keep having thoughts of being safe, secure, and comfortable, you begin to feel safe, secure, and comfortable. That you can actually do something about the way that we feel. One of the ways that I say it is that people have been talking themselves into feeling bad their whole lives. Now it's time to start talking yourself into feeling good.
Yeah, I can.
We've been going over our to-do list and thinking of problems and trying to find solutions and thinking about how bad things can be if I don't get all of those problems solved. And here we go, just an unhappy civilization. But if we would say that right now there's no problems, right now this is paradise, right now things are good enough, right now I feel safe, right now I feel secure, right now I feel comfortable, then something is added to that, and that would be called satisfaction. We become satisfied with this present moment. So choiceless awareness, that choicelessness is almost never actual satisfaction. Here we're actually practicing becoming satisfied that this is good enough. I don't have to know everything. I feel good enough. I don't have to have all the magical experiences. This is good enough. And so we start working with this is good enough. Now, this word, these 4 words that we've been talking about actually are part of the definition of the word sukha in Pali. I've been working with sukha this whole time. Safe, secure, comfortable, satisfied. That is sukha.
Sweetness.
As opposed to being insecure, unsafe, uncomfortable, dissatisfied. Now, those things are actually dukkha. But we're practicing not being in dukkha, we're practicing being in sukha. Sukha and dukkha are exact opposites of one another. That when you're in the state of sukha, that's what we're looking for. That in fact, that's the whole teaching of the Buddha, is to get the mind out of dukkha and into sukha right here, right now. Right here, right now. Change your mind. Throw that stuff out. Come back to the present moment and enjoy the heck out of it, because that's all you'll ever get. It's this present moment. When we keep practicing this go ahead.
Sometimes in my meditations, I feel like the sukha, like the Pitta Sukha, is so strong that I feel like it's like I'm going to explode. Do you have any suggestions for that? Do you just like
Yes. Go ahead and explode.
just explode?
Is that possible?
Feels like it.
No, I didn't ask you.
No,
Okay,
no,
feeling like you'll explode is possible. Actually exploding, is that possible?
No, that's not possible. Yeah, so it's,
Okay.
yes, there's a fear
Well,
there.
that means that you're safe.
Yeah, there's a bit of a fear there. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right, right.
Exactly.
Which is dukkha.
Mm-hmm. So the fear that you'll explode actually robs yourself of the even higher experience that it could be. How high can you climb? How good can you feel? Because normally people are going to go up to a certain level and then they say, oh, if I go any higher than this, I'll fall or I'll explode or something, and then they stop themselves. And so it's actually a good idea to actually practice how good can you make yourself feel? What is your top? What is your high point? Can you go higher than that? How good can you feel?
Right.
And why in our society do we go around teaching our children how bad can you feel? Okay. Can I feel bad enough to get forgiven? I mean, look at the word sorry in our language. We go around saying sorry this and sorry that. Students say sorry to me for all kinds. I'm not sorry. And that's the whole thing. In Thai language, by the way, they have the statement "katut." Katut is actually the Thai word for sorry. But if you look at the actual definitions of the word, tut is the butt, and ko in this regard means to beat. Beat my butt is how the Thai people say I'm sorry. Naturally, very few people get their butt beaten when they say katut. That's kind of a surprise like that. But that's the whole point is that we want to be forgiven. And so the way that we practice that is by trying to prove that we've already been punished. You don't have to punish me further. But the noble attitude is, no, I'm not going to punish myself. Let me see you try. Bet you can't. Bet you can't make me feel bad. That, by the way, is in the sutra that we were talking about yesterday in the lion's roar. That the Buddha, even though people were criticizing, he says, nah, I'm not going to be feeling insecure and unsafe.
Right.
It's almost like taking responsibility of your way of being, right?
That's another way of saying it. The second noble truth, actually, when we understand the second noble truth, its entire teaching is to say that you made this mess and you can clean up your own mess. This is up to you. This is your responsibility. Then, in fact, ability to respond is different than react. And almost always, the whole life, we go around reacting, which means we just keep doing the same old actions over and over and over again. We just react.
Yeah.
But with wisdom, with waking up and seeing truly what's going on, and now finally we do have the ability to respond. And therefore, we do become able to respond. So I'm using the word slightly differently than it's used in the English language to get this point across. Is yes, you are responsible, whether you take that responsibility or not. But when we recognize that it's our responsibility, which goes back to the very, very first doubt. Mommy, can you pick me up? I can't stand up on my own. Or that's what prayer is all about, and supplication, kissing ass on an ass you can't find.
Oh my God. So su- so
Go
s-
ahead.
so sukha. So you're cultivating sukha is connected to um, the right effort. Are we? Is this?
Yes, absolutely.
And what
Your
about
right effort is to take you out of dukkha, this thought,
and
and
with
to
the,
put you in a state of sukha, this thought.
and does therefore right livelihood and right speech and all of those things just take care of themselves if you're
Yes, absolutely. And it always takes care of itself in this moment, as opposed to a precept and something off into the future, and this is how things are supposed to be, shoulds, woulds, coulds, rules, and all of that kind of stuff. But rather, are you going to open your mouth and lie to this guy right now, or are you going to tell him the truth? Are you going to pick up that brick and hit this guy or not? That's right here in the here now. Here's an actual interesting way of looking at it. In the Jewish tradition, in some parts of the Jewish tradition, they will have a designated dude, like a rabbi, that does the killing of the goats in a particular way. It's called kosher, and the kosher is from the raising of the goat, the killing of the goat, the distribution of the meat, and the cooking. All of that has to do in a certain way. But now you have this kosher dude who walks out there. The family has bought the ram, and they want him to kill it. And he looks into the eyes of that ram. Have you ever seen any of the Puss in Boots movies, to where we call them cat eyes, when they get really big eyes like this? Okay, so the goat comes up to this rabbi with those big calf eyes, or those big cow eyes, and this guy has compassion for this goat, and he can't kill it. He's got metta. He's got um, happiness in his mind. He can't kill when his mind is in that state. And so he doesn't kill the goat right then. Maybe he tells him to take it someplace else. In fact, he may put that knife away and never kill another goat if it hit him hard enough. The insight that he's killing things in a silly ceremony. So, um, and by the way, by the time the goat's dead, the goat doesn't care how formal the ceremony was. Um, so that's an example then of the precepts, as not precepts, but as the situation right here in the present moment. And so if your mind is noble, like that rabbi's mind became noble right then, right there, he couldn't kill.
this is very interesting because I feel like when I've tried to engage the Eightfold Noble Path, I've tried to establish rules and rituals and concepts about how I should behave. Um, and it sounds like all of that's been hogwash.
Yes, that's a very, very good word for um, Western Buddhism. The question is this clean water with soap before the hog gets washed, or is this the soapy water after the hog is washed? And how dirty was the hog when we washed him? But in general, the idea is that hogwash is something that we don't want to do anymore. We don't want to use it anymore. Okay, so um, let's go back to the Eightfold Noble Path, because in fact, the way that we've been talking, we've only talked about three of the items, which is sati, to wake up, ditti, to look, investigate, check out, is this thought wholesome or not? Check out, how do we feel? To check out what the body is doing, etc., like that. When we take the right effort then to make a change over and over and over again, we do develop some sukha. We do develop satisfaction. And when that satisfaction is developing over and over and over again, this is what gives rise to the confidence that I was mentioning before, that I can do this. I can clean out my mind. No matter what happens, I can come out of it. No matter the situation. That in fact, I could wake up laying on a gurney, being wheeled down the hospital corridor. How am I going to feel? What am I going to think? We've got choices here. We can have the thoughts of, oh no, what happened? Oh, poor me, or I'm going to die. Or we can have the thought, oh wow, I guess they're going to take care of me pretty well. Your choice. What kind of thoughts are you going to have? Up to you. That's the whole idea then in this regard. Now, this is also now the fourth step on the Eightfold Noble Path that is called Dhamma Sankappa. Is often translated into right thought, which is not a good translation, or right intention, which is closer. But I give you the definition of right attitude. That we start off in our life right with the attitude of being a victim, and what we're practicing here through the success of coming back into sukha over and over again to change our mind over and over again and get this success. We now begin to change our attitude from being the attitude of a loser to the attitude of a winner. And that first knowledge is the one that I mentioned is that I can do this. I can clean out my mind. No matter how much garbage it gets filled with, I can throw that, when I remember, I can throw that stuff out and come back to the present moment. Even if I have to do that 30 times. Got something on my mind and I recognize I don't want to have it on my mind. I throw it out, here it comes. I throw it out again, here it comes. I throw it out again, here it comes. Now what am I going to do? Am I going to succumb to it? Oh, poor me, I can't throw it out of my mind. Or I'm going to say, out you go again. I threw you out once. I can get rid of you again. I was getting along without you before you came in. I can get along without you now. Out you go. All right. The Buddha had the term, aha, I see you, Myra. Aha, I see you, Myra. Which means now that we're going to start making friends with our worst aspects, the very worst part of us that we want to hide from others, the terrible things we've done in the past, the banks we've robbed, the people we've killed, the people we've insulted, all of that kind of stuff that we've ever done in our past will come up to haunt us from time to time. And so we don't want that stuff to come up anymore because we feel bad when it does. So we don't like to be thought of as making mistakes. Our society doesn't tolerate mistakes. In fact, what our society tolerates, especially through the education system, is for us to know. Even if we have to guess and guess wrong, guessing wrong is better than not knowing. You don't like being you don't like being in the state of doubt. So what we need now to nerve. By the time of five, trying to change from being nurturer into a pick up your toys, do your homework, learn your ABC, do what I tell you.
We can't hear you very well.
Pardon?
We can't hear you very well. I don't know if yeah.
Okay, here's how is it now? Is
Yeah.
that better?
Yeah.
Okay, now if you have trouble hearing, please tell me. Okay?
Yeah.
So we start off in nurturing, and then we switch into criticism, and we remain critical of ourselves and others the rest of our lives. It's part of the society that we grew up in, is to have critical thinking. In fact, you can see it on television often that they advertise critical thinking.
We're both
supposed to
teachers.
criticize everything that you hear.
We're both teachers, so we're part of the problem.
All right. So, um, so now we need to do it the other way, and that is to go back to the nurturing, to go back and start nurturing ourselves as if we were already okay, rather than nurturing ourselves uh, because we're bad, because we're under the weight of the criticism. In other words, the way to say it is love yourself, warts and all. In fact, love the warts even more. Look at those things. Really get in touch with your worst nature, because you're not going to be able to fix your worst nature if you don't know it very well. We hide from our worst nature. I don't want to know about how bad I've been and how bad I can be. But now we're changing all of that into I'm okay already. This is all right. And so we begin to have the attitude of friendship and nurturing. Another way of talking about it, there's a Simon and Garfunkel song called The Sound of Silence. Have you ever heard of that song?
Yeah, of course.
It's called Hello Darkness, My Old Friend.
Right.
When I was a teenager and heard that, I thought that meant that we take our guitar and we go in and turn the lights off in our bedroom and we feel bad. But actually, we can take it in this other way of saying hello, darkness, whenever our own darkness comes up. We can see it clearly so that we can change it. And the changes that we're making actually is to nourish it rather than to criticize it. To start finding out the worst aspects of yourself and then saying, that's okay. You're all right. You made it here. Think of it like this. No matter what bad things you've done in your past, it didn't kill you. You're still here. You're alive. So whatever happened in the past was good enough to get you to this present moment. So congratulate yourself, warts and all.
Yeah.
This is the major attitude now that we're changing from being a victim with warts that have to be hidden into being a champion, being a winner, being a lion. The Buddha was known as a lion.
Mm.
This attitude we're talking about of the Sama Sankappa, that's right there on the Eightfold Noble Path, but most people don't understand. They immediately jump to the precepts, which got nothing to do with what we're talking about here. We're talking about actually changing the mind. Now, when we have these four things, what for? Sati, to remember to be in the present moment, and then to do an investigation to see what's going on, and then make a change to it to improve things. And then number four, to congratulate ourselves. Hey, we got this. This we can do. When we have these four things, the fifth thing naturally arises on its own, which is called Sama Area Samati. And the word Samati here actually means organization, the right organization of the right unification of mind. It does not mean concentration. That in fact Western Buddhism has gotten all attached to this word concentration, and they'll sit in meditation and go into a funky state, or maybe get drowsy, or maybe going into daydreams or something really weird, and they'll call that concentration.
Been there.
But the Zen stick proves otherwise. What is the Zen stick? You know, in the Zen dojo, they have the Zen stick, and the master comes by. Why? Who gets hit?
That's the drowsy, the person's falling asleep.
The one who does not know that the meditation master is right behind him.
Right.
But if you knew that the meditation master was right behind you with that stick, would you change your posture at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we change our posture. It's like, here's my shoulder. Beat me. And so that means that we're paying attention. We're here now. We're in the present moment. This is what the Buddha teaches. He does not teach concentration. It teaches being in the present moment with all of the faculties gathered together. The samadhi mind means that we're no longer in conflict, we're no longer in a mental dialogue, we're no longer in a sad state, that we've got it stuck together. And so and back in the 1970s, I don't know if you guys have ever heard this statement, but we used to talk about it like this when we were doing in psychotherapy. You got to get your shit together. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, of course.
Well, that's what we're talking about. We got to get our shit together. And we know exactly how to do that now, is by changing each thought one at a time and then get a big kick out of it. Wow, look how good I'm doing now. I can do this, right? And so we begin to get our stuff together. That in fact, I found out that once I got all of my shit together, I had to stay there because it was too heavy to carry around.
That's a lot of shit.
And so in that regard, we actually need to dump a lot of stuff, to get rid of it, to throw it out, especially the stuff that makes us feel bad. We want to be lightweight. So once we get our shit together, we begin to throw stuff out. So here's the 2 points: knowledge and deliverance. The Anapanasati Sutta has this, and so does the Great 40, which is the one that we've been discussing most here today on the Eightfold Noble Path. Is we have knowledge and then deliverance. Once we get our shit together, we'll know what needs to be thrown out. And so the whole idea of the Sotapan is the one who is really, really super dedicated to keeping his shit together and throwing his stuff out. Eager, dedicated, joyful. These are the states of the fruit of Sotapan. That in fact, the knowledge that no matter how obstructed the mind gets, I can throw that stuff out. The Buddha says that that's the first step. It's the first knowledge that is noble, supramundane, a part of the path, and is not held by ordinary people. Okay? It is supramundane, it is noble, it is part of the path, and it is not shared by ordinary people. In fact, this is the difference now between the beginning of the noble path and ordinary people, is ordinary people are still looking for help. They're still looking for a teacher. They're still looking for a mommy or a god or a daddy or something like that. Our meditation master, someone who can do Shaktipat, who could come in and go wacko, and now we feel good. Maybe it's a karma machine. After I put in 100,000 hours of meditation, the karma machine's going to waltz in, do some Shaktipat, and now I can feel good. Okay, we're looking for events. We're taught this. You can't feel good until you buy that car you want. You can't feel good until you get your diploma. You can't feel good until you do this, that, and the other thing. And the reality is that none of that stuff actually matters. That's part of that issue about external sources rather than coming in from the inside. And so once we recognize I can do it myself, the first thing we have to know is I have to do it myself because I ain't nobody else going to do it for me. Buying that new car, I'm going to feel good for a little while until that first payment or the first dent. And now all of a sudden, I don't love that car quite as much as I did before. So it ain't the car that makes me feel good. It's something that I did inside anyway. And so now we recognize that that's my responsibility, is to change my mind so that I can feel the way that I want to feel. And when we feel the way that we want to feel, we feel good and we like it. And that gives us confidence. And that confidence goes into the unification of the mind. Now, when the mind is noble, after the mind is noble, then we're unlikely to go harm anyone because we don't want anything. And so that's the way that we can really look at the precepts. The precepts actually are the outcome of a noble mind, not the cause of the creation of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever you're about to commit a bad act, wakey, right here, right now, ask yourself, am I going to have a noble mind right now, or am I going to create this new pile of shit?
Right.
And so this is the Eightfold Noble Path, and we also practice it through Anapanasati. Many, many years ago, I think it was like in the 1940s or so, Bhikkhu Buddhadasa made the public statement, and he caused yet another kerfuffle in Thailand when he says that the Buddha only taught one kind of meditation, only one, Anapanasati. And they went through a lot of research over that and came to find out, yeah, that's the case. The Buddha only gave one practice for the Eightfold Noble Path. And surprisingly enough, the Eightfold Noble Path is number 117 in the Majjhima Nikaya, and Anapanasati is number 118 in the Anapanasati Sutta, number 118. And so they're twin suttas, and they're right there together in the suttas. So next time when you call, we'll talk about Anapanasati. Today I've just been playing with it just a little bit, like the Sukha is not mentioned in the Eightfold Noble Path, but is the primary point in the Anapanasati Sutta of being able to control your feelings. Because most people are out of control. They feel the way that they were supposed to feel when they were kids. We feel the way that we were trained to feel. And because of that, we always feel the way that we want to feel. We just are using the wrong criteria for that choice. Like we choose to feel the way that I used to feel because that's easy enough. I already know how to feel that way. Feeling good is unusual. I'm not so skilled at feeling good until I practice it. And once you practice feeling good, now you've got a new choice.
So both of us feel probably an immense amount of gratitude. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We'd love to send an offering. Like do you take donations? Do you for your time or?
That's a complicated story.
Okay.
And the complication is that I don't want any of your money, but I do want your time.
That works.
Okay, and we'll talk about what time you can spend. The first part of the time that you can spend is getting your mind straightened out. Make me feel good by being successful at what we're talking about here.
Sure.
I've already had money, and that doesn't make me feel all that great.
Okay, well,
just a little bit, just a little dab will do you, and after that, you get drowned in it.
One other like last question. This is because we will wrap up. Just and maybe this is my own hindrances or my own unwholesome thoughts, but I have a tension with the idea of like choice, making all of these choices, like choosing to have the right attitude, and then with some experiences I've had of, I guess you might call them like selflessness or just not feeling like as contracted. Do you think that there's any conflict between, this idea of making choices in your own attitude, in your mood, and the insight of anatta?
Actually, all the conflicts that you will have, you created. So you can ask yourself the question, why should I create a conflict when I can enjoy myself instead? So we can talk about this at another time, but I would say that anatta is a kind of a side issue. It's not really all of that important, and yet it's made overly important in Western Buddhism, partly due to bad translations. Okay, and let's talk about it later in detail. But right now, we can say that anatta does not necessarily mean no self or it doesn't exist or whatever like that. The complications are easily resolved by stop using the word self and start using the word selfish. When you are selfish, there's a self. When you were clinging to it, there is a clingor who was doing the clinging on the Klingon. Little Star Trek reference there. So when you're clinging, that's the you. When you're not clinging to anything, when you're not selfish, where's the self that's doing the selfishness? So if somebody comes to you, a brother comes to you and says, please loan me $500, if you think you're to yourself, oh, I need that money, then I'm going to say no to him, and then everybody feels bad. I feel bad because I'm poor already, and he just reminded me of how poor I am, and I'm going to tell him no, and so he has to do without too. But if I say yes, I've got the money, here you go, then he'll feel good because he needs the money, and I'll feel good because I feel wealthy enough to let it go. So it's a win-win situation. One of them is selfish. The selfish is that I say no, and then I'm feeling selfish, and so is he. If I say yes, here's the money, then I'm not selfish, and neither is he. And so that's the win-win situation. But does the self exist like it was a big ball of fur that sat between the spleen and the diaphragm? Let's not go into magical thinking, because we already know that that's not possible. That in fact, selfishness comes up from time to time based upon circumstances. You can see that. Therefore, you can also understand that the self that is the selfishness also is temporary. It arises in certain conditions, and it's not there in other conditions.
Mm.
So if you had an experience, or you think that you know what kind of experience you want, then that's selfishness. I want that experience. But if you're there saying, I've already got everything that I need, isn't this really nice? Then I don't see any selfishness. In fact, there's abundance. You feel wealthy, you feel rich. So selfishness actually is, tight, contracted. Things are not good enough. And we think of only ourself in that regard, to where when we're wealthy, then we think of altruism, we think of our community, we think of our friends, etc., like that. That in fact, sometimes we're so selfish that we won't even see ourselves as a friend. And so that's the short answer. The short answer is, let's use the word selfishness to understand this thing, rather than thinking that there is a self that is either there or not there.
Mm.
That it's a temporary condition based upon situational and circumstantial things.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
We had
thank you. That was amazing.
Yeah.
It was I really appreciate how simple and practical all that knowledge feels.
Yes, that's the whole point. That Western Buddhism wants to make it magical, airy-fairy. There's a whole lot of impossibilities and all of that kind of stuff. And when we cut all through that, it comes right down to the basic teachings of the Buddha is very simple to practice. And I'll leave you with one point, and that it has to be done over and over and over and over and over again, because we have been talking ourselves into feeling bad over and over and over again for years. And so those habits are deep. So I'll leave you with this joke. The entire teachings of the Buddha is printed on the back of every shampoo bottle in 7-Eleven or at Walmart. Yeah, the shampoo bottles have the entire teachings of the Buddha. And what is that? It says rinse and repeat. That's the entire teachings of the Buddha, to rinse and repeat. To clean your mind, and then clean it again, and then clean it again, and then clean it again. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That's the whole teaching. And so that's the last thing that I leave with you today.
That will definitely stick.
Okay, guys.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
So when will you call back again?
I'll probably call you tomorrow.
Give me a couple of days, okay? I'm thinking about twice a week would be good.
Okay. Yeah, we'll call you.
Okay.
We'll call you in a few days.
All right. Excellent.
Okay,
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Joanne, see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.